Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to tell you an interesting story from Reddit. In parallel, I will be playing Minecraft Survival in a new world with beautiful shaders. Good night to those who listen to this story before bed and enjoy watching the price of a lottery ticket. A story of a win. Part 1. Mechanical Luck. I am 40 years old, and only now, sitting on the veranda of my house on the other side of the country, do I feel ready to tell this story. For a long time, I remained silent. I was ashamed. People are cynical. When you tell them you won millions and subsequently lost everyone you loved, they look at you with a smirk. They think you've grown arrogant, playing the victim. But I'm not exaggerating anything. At 29, I was living a gray, predictable life. I worked on the outskirts of the city at a huge warehouse for construction materials. I turned the steering wheel of a forklift and checked invoices. My salary was barely enough for the rent of a one-room apartment, basic groceries on discount, and occasional gatherings at a bar on Fridays. The pinnacle of my dreams was primitive. Save up for a down payment, buy a tiny house, and forever get rid of that sticky night terror before the first of the month when rent was due. My family lived nearby. My mother, my younger sister Liza, and my older brother Michael. Our father died early, burning out in 3 days from a heart condition when I was 16. My mother had to carry 3 children on her back. She washed floors in a shopping mall, pulled night shifts, and took in sewing at home. Seeing her hands shaking from exhaustion, I developed a rock-solid sense of responsibility from adolescence. That is why, on payday, the first thing I did was transfer a fixed $200 to my mother. For my budget, it was a tangible chunk, but it was not up for debate. We weren't an ideal family. My brother Michael was always looking for easy money, betting on sports, and borrowing from everyone. My sister Liza grew up capricious, resentful of the world because her friends had more expensive things. But it seemed to me that we held onto each other. Holy naivety. Everything changed on a gray autumn Tuesday. After a heavy shift, I pulled into a gas station for a coffee to keep from falling asleep behind the wheel of my crumbling car. By the register stood a rack of lottery tickets. I had never been a gambling man, but under a sudden impulse, I nodded to the cashier. "And that blue one, please." The ticket cost mere cents. I threw it into my jacket pocket and forgot about it for 4 days. I only remembered it on Saturday evening when I stumbled upon a news post about a major draw. I retrieved the crumpled piece of paper, went to the website, and began lazily checking the numbers. The first digit matched. The second, the third, I sat up straight on the couch. The fourth, the air in the room grew thick. The fifth, a perfect match. My heart dropped into my stomach and began to pound so furiously that my ears rang. I squeezed my eyes shut, wiped my face, cleared my browser cache, and washed with ice-cold water. There was no mistake. The amount after all harsh state taxes was just over $2 million. Net. For Wall Street, it's pennies. But for a guy from a warehouse who calculated the cost per kilogram of pasta, it was cosmic money. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I walked across the creaking floorboards and modeled the future, how I would buy a cozy house, quit the warehouse, clear my debts, and walk up to my mother with a check. "That's it, Mom. You never have to work again." I sincerely believed that money was a tool that makes life cleaner and happier. I did not yet know that it merely illuminates the ugliest sides of human nature. Part 2. The Leaked Secret. After 3 weeks of bureaucracy, the money finally hit my account. I decided to tell no one. I wanted to come to my senses, hire a financial advisor, and make a pragmatic plan. But the secret didn't last a week. On Saturday, Michael drove over without warning to pick up an old chest of drawers. We were straining on the narrow stairs and I got stained with dust. When we returned to the room to drink some water, my phone was lying on the table. Suddenly, the screen lit up. An automatic push notification from the bank arrived, showing my monthly balance. I was standing with my back turned, but Michael was right in front of the display. He froze, his eyes rounded, his breathing grew heavy. He forced a tense smile, quickly said goodbye, and left. The next morning at 10, my phone vibrated. "Is there anything you want to tell me, little bro?" Michael's heavy voice came through the receiver. "I saw your screen yesterday. There was over $2 million there. Where from? Did you get mixed up in crime?" I tried to lie about an app error, but I got tangled in my words, gave up, and told him everything. My brother was silent for a long time, and then he burst into a hysterical laugh. "Bro, you're a rich man now. We're rich men now." It seemed to me like genuine brotherly joy. God, how mistaken I was. Within a week, the entire extended family knew about the win, including second cousins I had only seen at my father's funeral. Michael had blabbed to everyone, inflating the amount by 1.5 times. My phone turned into a red hot piece of plastic. My mother sobbed into the receiver out of happiness, calling me the best son and a gift of fate. My sister Liza rang with delight. Everyone congratulated me, wished me health, and gave me virtual standing ovations. Intoxicated by this torrent of love, I thought it was normal. Now I realize none of them were thinking about me. They looked right through me, and their eyes reflected straight, green stacks of $100 bills. They were already mentally dividing my money. Part 3. The first cracks. Requests for help poured in immediately. As soon as the first wave of congratulations subsided, the relatives acted cautiously, like wild animals approaching a feeding trough. First came Liza. She brought pastries, hovered in the kitchen for a long time, and then, casting her eyes down, asked for $5,000 for a down payment on a used car, claiming she was deathly tired of riding packed buses to the university. The next day, my mother called. The roof was leaking, mold was appearing, and the builders were asking for a large sum. Then Uncle Tom showed up with a message about the suffocating interest rates on microloans for his shoe repair workshop. I helped. I paid for everything without a second thought. It felt pleasing, a sense of my own significance sang inside me. Every time I heard the same mantra, "This is the last time, honest to God, we are your debtors until the end of our days." But this last time was never the last. No sooner had I closed one hole than a new, even larger one opened up. After 4 months, the character of our communication changed cardinally. Humanity completely evaporated from it. Previously, my mother could call just because to ask about my health. My brother could invite me over for football. Now, this no longer existed. No one cared about what was on my soul. People called exclusively with one purpose. Every conversation inevitably slithered down to money. I sat in my spacious new apartment and realized I deathly missed the times when I was an ordinary guy from the warehouse. Back then, they talked to me as a human being, to Artem. Now, they talked exclusively to my bank account. I had turned into a faceless ATM. Part 4. For you, it's pennies. By the end of the first year, the boundaries of what was permissible in the minds of my relatives had eroded completely. Asking for modest sums for medicine or repairs became boring to them. They had tasted a sated life toward which they had not applied the slightest effort. One evening, Liza called. In a resentful tone, she told me that her friend, the daughter of an official, had arrived at classes in a brand new crossover straight from the showroom. And now Liza, in her hatchback, felt inadequate, like a beggar. "Why don't you just come with me to the showroom and buy me a normal car?" she uttered. "Well, at least for $50,000, so I don't feel ashamed in front of people." "Liza, are you out of your mind?" I was outraged. "I gave you money for a car 4 months ago. It drives perfectly." "What's the big deal?" My sister replied in an icy tone. "For you, it's pennies." This was the first time I heard that phrase, but far from the last. For you, It's pennies. Terrifying words. In their understanding, my money had depreciated simply because there was a lot of it. A week later, Michael's cousin, Kevin, appeared on my threshold with a folder of printouts. He had caught fire with the idea of opening an elite seafood restaurant in the city center. Kevin had worked his whole life as an auto mechanic's assistant, had absolutely no experience, no business plan, and no market analysis. From me, just a little thing was required to irrevocably hand him $100,000. When I asked about returning the money or a share in the profits, he looked at me like an enemy. Return it? Artem, what's wrong with you? Your family. What debts between our own? Are you really that stingy for your brother? That evening, my eyes finally opened. I locked myself in my study, took my bank statements, opened a calculator, and balanced the debits and credits. When the final sum flashed on the screen, my breath caught. In 12 months, I had distributed and blown nearly $1 million on their endless whims. Half of my winnings. The money went to clear loans, buy household appliances, and fund insane business projects that failed in the very first weeks because no one wanted to work. Everyone just wanted to spend. And the most terrifying thing was that in this entire year, no one said a simple, "Thank you, Artem." On the contrary, my generosity birthed in them a monstrous sense of entitlement. The debtor in their eyes remained precisely me. Every subsequent refusal of mine triggered a storm of rage and resentment. Part 5. The Family Dinner. The culmination came on Christmas. My mother hosted a large dinner and the whole family gathered. I drove there hoping for a holiday and warmth, having bought delicacies, expensive toys, and gadgets for my nephews. But the atmosphere in the house was like a thundercloud. At the table, the conversations quickly went down the old track. Uncle Tom complained about German equipment. Michael talked imposingly about a 2-story mansion in an elite suburb and the need for a down payment. And Liza sighed demonstratively over the high cost of brands. Suddenly, a silence fell over the room. Everyone present looked at me with heavy, evaluating gazes. A terrifying epiphany hit me. This wasn't a holiday. This was a meeting of a board of creditors where all of them were petitioners, and I was the sole investor obligated to cover their corporate whims. Michael smiled fakingly. "Well, Artem, bro, will you help the family close these questions before the new year? For you, it's just a couple of clicks on your phone." I slowly placed my fork down. "No," I said quietly but clearly. "I will not pay for Michael's house. I will not buy Liza clothes and cars. Enough." The smile slid off my brother's face and the relatives began exchanging glances with malice. And then my mother stood up. Her face appeared alien and stone-like to me. "Money has ruined you, Artem. It has made you callous and selfish. You have forgotten your roots." I lost the power of speech from the sheer injustice. I, who continued to pay her utility bills, bought her expensive medications, and had given them $1 million, turned out to be the worst person simply because I said no for the first time. I silently stood up, put on my jacket, and left, leaving the gifts under the tree. Driving my car down the snowy highway, I thought for the first time, what if money hadn't changed me? What if it simply, like a chemical reagent, revealed what had always been hidden inside these people while we were poor? Part 6. The Swift Rupture. After Christmas, a Cold War began. Michael, despite my refusal, got entangled in a bonded mortgage for that huge house, calculating that I would eventually break and toss him some money. His salary was barely enough for the payment. He was on starvation rations. A month later, he sent me an invoice with a note. "Help me out, otherwise I'll be hit with penalties." I replied shortly, "Rely on your own strength." After that, my brother vanished. He stopped answering calls, and messages hung as "read." My mother stated in a dry tone. And what did you expect, Artem? You turned your back on your brother at his hardest moment. He is offended, and I understand him perfectly. I was no longer invited to family gatherings or nephews' birthdays. I realized they had created another family group chat without me. I became an outcast. The final blow awaited me at the end of spring. In a shopping mall, I spotted Kevin and his younger brother Sam at the food court. I wanted to approach and take a step toward reconciliation, but I stopped behind a decorative palm tree to shift my shopping bags and heard their voices. Just forget about him, Kevin said loudly, sipping his coffee. Artem was always rotten. Remember how he hoarded his toys in childhood? Money just showed his true nature. He's living it up alone while we count pennies. The man doesn't have a single drop of conscience. Family means nothing to him. Don't worry, life will punish him. He'll die alone on his bags of cash, and no one will even come to his funeral. I froze as my brother's words flew into my back like poisoned arrows. Then I clearly understood there would be no reconciliation. They would never forgive me for my money unless I gave them every last cent. I turned around and walked out of the mall. Part 7. 8 Years of Silence. I moved to the other side of the country, to a small, quiet seaside town. I bought a modest but sturdy house made of light-colored stone with a veranda facing ancient pines. I changed everything. My phone numbers, deleted my social media accounts, and erased any digital footprints. I didn't leave my new address for my mother or brother. I simply transferred a large, fixed sum to my mother's account. It should have been more than enough for 10 years of a comfortable life. Sent a short farewell letter through a lawyer and closed that door. 8 years is a massive amount of time. At first, I was learning how to live all over again, learning not to flinch at calls from unknown numbers and walking the streets without that sticky sense of guilt that had been so diligently instilled in me. I took care of my health, read a lot, and landscaped the garden around the house. In town, nobody knew I was a millionaire. To my neighbors, I was just a quiet 30-year-old guy who worked remotely in IT. I went to the regular supermarket, wore simple jeans and hoodies, and drove an unassuming Japanese car. It was a beautiful, blessed time. Deep sleep returned to me and my nervous system was healing. I began to notice beauty in simple things again. Morning coffee, the smell of rain. It seemed to me that I was completely cured and the past was left behind on the snowy highway. I had built my perfect, impregnable fortress, but the illusion of safety shattered into dust on an ordinary Thursday in the 8th year of my new life. At 4 in the afternoon, I heard a hesitant knock at my gate. Thinking it was a courier or a neighbor, I opened the wooden gate and everything inside me froze. All my peace evaporated in a second. Standing outside was Michael, Part 8, The Return of the Ghosts. I clutched the crossbar of the gate, thinking it was a hallucination. Over those 8 years, my brother had changed drastically. He looked aged by about 15 years, haggard and broken down. Thick streaks of gray lined his hair. Deep wrinkles covered his face, and he was dressed in a worn-out jacket and crumpled jeans. The old arrogance in his eyes was gone. All that remained was a sticky fear and a desperation to please. "Hey, Artem," he said quietly in a cracked voice. "Well, hey bro, we've been looking for you for a long time. We barely tracked you down through some old property databases. You hid yourself pretty good." I remained silent. The air in my lungs turned to glass. Chaos raged within me. Anger, resentment, and a fierce refusal to let this man into my peaceful world. "Why are you here, Michael?" I finally asked in a dry tone. "Artem, please, just listen to me," he pleaded with tears in his eyes, taking a step forward. "We are in total catastrophe. Mom is very sick. She's in the hospital. Just give me 10 minutes. Just listen." The word "mom" and the mention of a hospital triggered an ancient childhood response of responsibility that I couldn't switch off, even after years of therapy. I clenched my teeth and nodded toward the veranda. "Come in, but I'm not letting you inside the house. We talk here." Michael sat on the edge of a chair, his hands visibly trembling. His monologue poured out fast. He choked on his words, terrified I would throw him out. He told me that the large sum of money I had left for my mother had vanished phenomenally fast, within the first 3 years. Michael had gone bust on yet another financial pyramid scheme, dragging my mother's savings down with him. The bank repossessed the mansion for debts, hitting them with massive fines. Our sister Liza had rushed into marriage with a con artist who took out countless loans in her name and vanished, leaving her with astronomical debts and a small child to raise. "We are drowning in lawsuits, Artem." Michael wept, covering his face with his hands. "They've seized everything they possibly could. Mom couldn't handle the shame and the calls from debt collectors. She suffered a massive stroke. She's been in a private clinic for 2 weeks, and rehabilitation costs insane money that we don't have a single cent of. The public hospital refuses to keep her. They are transferring her to some horrible hospice on the outskirts where she'll just rot away in a month." A titanic struggle was taking place inside me. My mind screamed, "It's a manipulation! The classic playbook. They need your wallet again. Why did they only remember you when they hit rock bottom?" But before my eyes stood the image of my mother from childhood, the one who gave us her last bite of food. I stood at a crossroads where any decision would cost me a piece of my soul. Part 9. The True Face of Repentance. Michael wiped his tears with his sleeve and looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "Artem, we finally understand. Through these years in poverty, courts, and trouble, we realized what monsters we were to you, how we demanded the impossible, how we trampled your kindness." Before her stroke, Mom cried every single day looking at your old photograph, begging for your forgiveness. Liza is biting her nails in regret. "We didn't just lose money, we lost a brother. Please forgive us. We don't want your millions for a glamorous life. We swear to you. We just need to save Mom, pay for the clinic, come back to the family. We miss you so much." His words sounded incredibly convincing. It was a flawless performance of repentance. The exact words I had dreamed of hearing all those 8 years. Anyone in my shoes, starving for family warmth, would have broken down. I was already on the verge of reaching into my pocket for my phone with the banking app, a wave of warmth rising in my chest. Well, that's it. The nightmare is over. We'll be together again. But at that critical moment, an old warehouse instinct saved me. The habit of paying attention to small details. While Michael wept and claimed he didn't even have money for food or a bus ticket, his jacket shifted slightly open. His phone was halfway exposed from the inside pocket. It was the newest, most expensive flagship smartphone of the latest model, which had hit the market literally a couple of months ago. It cost as much as 2 good monthly salaries of an ordinary person. On his wrist, barely concealed by his sleeve, gleamed a highly expensive smartwatch of the current series. I shifted my gaze lower. Michael claimed he traveled to see me on connecting buses using his last cents. Yet, the distinct shape of a key fob for a modern car's keyless entry was poking out of his jeans pocket, and it was definitely not a key fob for an old junker. I slowly pulled my hand away from my pocket. My heart instantly turned into a block of granite. A transparent, ringing emptiness settled inside me. I understood everything. Those 8 years had taught them nothing. They hadn't changed by a fraction of a millimeter. This entire scene, the worn-out jacket, the tears, the stories about the hospice and the stroke, my mother's repentance in front of a photograph, all of it was a meticulously rehearsed performance. They simply realized that their past method of direct pressure and aggression hadn't worked on me. I had run away. And now, To crack open my vault, they decided to use a more subtle weapon: pity, guilt, and fake repentance. They played the dying mother card just to get to my money. I felt physically ill from the realization of just how low and cynical people can be, even when the exact same blood flows through their veins. I slowly stood up. My gaze became heavy as lead. Michael noticed a change and stopped mid-sentence. His fake tears dried up instantly. "Artem, what's wrong?" he asked, uncertainty. "You have a very nice phone, Michael," I said quietly, pointing at his pocket. "The latest flagship, and the watch is great too, and that car key fob looks pretty stylish for someone who doesn't have money for a bus." Michael froze. In an instant, his face transformed. The entire mask of a repentant sinner fell away like chaff. There were no more tears. Instead, his old, predatory nature flared up. He knew the show was over. The trick had been seen through. He slowly stood up, straightened himself out, his posture becoming arrogant again. He let out a nasty sneer. "Well, look at you. Aren't we observant? The sharp-eyed millionaire. Yeah, the phone is new. So what? What am I supposed to do? Walk around in rags while you're drowning in luxury here?" "Leave, Michael," I said calmly, gesturing toward the gate. "Leave and never show your face here again. If I see you or Liza near my house, I will call the police without warning, and I will stir up such legal trouble for you through my lawyers that your current lawsuits will look like child's play. Get out!" My brother took 2 steps, then spun around. His face was distorted with a wild, primal hatred. He was practically spitting out his words, screaming across my quiet garden. "Go to hell, you bastard! You were a piece of trash then, and you're a piece of trash now. A greedy, dried-up egoist. You think your millions are going to save you from loneliness? You're going to die in this stone coffin of yours, and nobody will even remember your name. We curse you, Artem. The whole family curses you. Choke on your money." He forcefully slammed the gate shut behind him. A minute later, the sharp screech of tires from an expensive car speeding away echoed from the road. I was left standing on the veranda. Silence reigned once more. The pines quietly rustled, the sun set, and a cool, blue twilight descended upon the town. Part 10. The Real Price of Winning. I returned to my chair. My coffee had gone completely cold, covered with a thin, dark film. I looked out at the garden and felt nothing. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt anymore. I didn't feel bitter or ashamed. That massive, heavy abscess that I had carried in my soul for 9 long years had finally ruptured and drained completely. By coming here, Michael had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible. He granted me ultimate, absolute freedom. He destroyed any remaining remnants of doubt and guilt. Now I knew with crystal clarity, I had done everything right. My escape, my cutting of ties, it was the only correct, life-saving decision. I am 40 years old. I am sitting on the veranda, watching the stars begin to light up in the clear night sky above the sea. I don't have a family in the traditional sense of the word. My biological relatives are dead to me, and I am dead to them. That is a fact I've learned to live with. But you know what? I don't feel lonely anymore. Over these years, I have found true, loyal friends. People who came into my life for no ulterior motive, who share my hobbies, and who are ready to help at a moment's notice without having any clue about the balance of my bank account. A year ago, I met a wonderful woman who loves me for who I am, for my jokes, my care, and the scars on my soul. Soon, we are having a baby. And I know for a fact that my child will grow up in an atmosphere of true, unconditional love, where a person's worth will never, under any circumstances, be measured by numbers in a mobile banking app. That lottery ticket, bought for a couple of cents on a rainy Tuesday at a gas station, truly changed my life completely. It rewrote it, but not at all in the way I had imagined on that first sleepless night. The money didn't bring me easy, automatic happiness. It became my harshest, most brutal, and merciless teacher. It forced me to pay a colossal, terrifying price, the total loss of those I consider my family. But in return, it gave me something far more valuable. It stripped away all the masks. It showed me the true faces of people. It taught me to value sincerity, to protect my personal boundaries, and to understand that a real family is not built on a shared genetic code or matching blood. It is built on mutual respect, purity of intentions, and a love that does not and can never carry a price tag. I take a sip of the cold coffee, smile into the darkness, and finally feel absolutely, completely happy.